Hi, everybody. Who remembers where we were last time when we finished? Oh, I have it in my film.
Hey, good morning. I just got back from Manchester at 5 a.m. this morning.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's a train strike. So,
yeah.
I decided I wasn't going to risk getting back on the train in case there weren't trains. Yesterday I got them, was empty and lovely, but today I decided I wasn't going to risk it. So we got a minibus. But it was for a wonderful wedding, so it was fun. It was Ginny, it was Rivki Gurvitz's wedding last night.
Wow.
You should only go for smachot b'simcha b'karov in good health.
Amen, amen.
Okay, Bezrat Hashem.
Morning, Katie.
Where are we up to? Who remembers?
And you know what? I'm just going to get my Tehillim. That's I'm not even up to do.
Yud Bet, I think we finished or got up to Yud Bet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, yeah, just done, finished Yud Bet. I
Thank
think,
you.
Rebbetzen.
Yes, thank you.
No.
Thank you very much. I see that I marked it in my film also. That's cute. Okay, Bezrat Hashem. We talked about Yud Bet? We didn't talk about it then.
Maybe just briefly.
What parak is it? My paper fell out.
Yes.
Nun Hey. This is Nun Hey. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nהיה b'dvaro. Okay, so we talked about it's interesting. Let's see. Where's my phone? Okay, well, is Anita on? No.
I think Anita's teaching, but it's all open, running and recording.
Is it recording directly to the new YouTube?
No, I think anyway, it's got to be uploaded before, and then it will probably go onto yours. I'll check how she does that, but it's got to be uploaded first from the recording.
There's a way to do it directly. She can do it directly. We can do it directly.
Yeah, it's either Anita or Tzipi does it. I'll ask her.
Okay.
Or just or
Really,
directly.
way to do it. We have to do it next time directly. That way we don't have to upload. It just goes directly. It's called live streaming, and it directly uploads to YouTube.
Yeah, but isn't live streaming something else?
What?
Live streaming is a different format.
No.
No.
She set me up a channel on YouTube.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
to there.
Okay.
So we're up a bit, and we're remembering that this parak of Tehillim is the painful parak where David HaMelech is talking about how he's been betrayed by his own Rebbe, by his teacher Achitophel. And now we're going to come to a word. I don't know if I told you how to pronounce this word, but it's called havot. Did we talk about that? This word on your base.
Yes, we spoke about it.
Okay. So havot means difficulties. It's an interesting word because it's hard to pronounce and it's hard to know how to say it. But havot means problems. So he says, havot b'kirba, he's talking now about a place, not just people, but a place where evil people hang out. And because he's talking about Eretz Yisrael that he had to run away. He had to run away from the shuv, from where he was comfortable, where he was living in Yerushalayim HaKodesh. And he talks about this pasuk and the pasuk before says, Havot b'kirba, when you're with, if there's bad people, and this is a very big problem that we have in this generation. We don't know how to figure this out. Because Havot b'kirba v'lo yamesh b'chavat tzochem yama, in this place of deceit, of evil, 55, chapter 55, verse 12. Chapter 55, pasuk Yud Beis. In this place where there's people who are coming together to talk about uprooting the Malchus, uprooting the kingship of David HaMelech, in that place, he says that the place becomes permeated. The geographic, physical place becomes permeated with evil. Just like if you walk into a holy person's house, or if you walk into a shul, or if you walk into a base medrash, you feel the holiness. So too, hopefully your houses are permeated with holiness. So too, in a place where evildoers come together, the place itself, even if there's nobody in that place, if you would walk, let's say, into a bar, I don't know how you say a bar in UK English, a place where they sell whiskey and, people get drunk.
It works a bar or the pub.
A pub, right. If you would walk into a pub, even if the pub is not open and there's nobody there, not even the owner is there, but if you would walk in, and even if they had just fumigated it and cleaned it, it would feel horrible to you because it's an immoral place. It's a place of immorality where people go and it doesn't have the best reputation. So in that place, even in the street in front of that place, even the outside is all tochem yama. It's all criminal. It's like a criminal energy, even in the place. Now, David HaMelech is now going to break our heart even more. At the end of the Tehillim, it works out, but he's going to break our heart, and he says, it's not like I thought he was my enemy, that person who actually went against me. If it was my enemy, I would know how to handle it. But it wasn't an enemy who betrayed me, says David HaMelech. It wasn't a person who was my sonnet, who hated me, or who I thought hated me, that went against me. Because if that was the case, if I would have known, if you know who's an enemy to you, you know who doesn't like you, you know who's you have bad energy with, so you would avoid them. So if I thought, David HaMelech is revealing his heart to us, and he's saying, the person that I'm talking about now that betrayed me, that broke my heart, wasn't someone that I could even avoid or put up barriers and guard against, because because you are a man ke'erki, you're on my level. Alufi, you are my Rebbe. Miyudai, you were close to me. You're my friend. Va'ata enosh, and he uses the word enosh. The word enosh is a different word than ish. Enosh means, it's a broader category, like enoshi means humanity. Enosh means humanity. You're a human being, you're a person. He's talking to Achitophel that just betrayed him. And because of this betrayal, David's life is in danger. And because of this betrayal, David's own son went against him. And in the end, that son of David was killed because of this whole story. He lost his son, Avshalom. So he says, I couldn't avoid you. I couldn't even imagine that this was going to happen because you were my friend, you were my teacher, you were my alufi, and aluf is my officer, I looked up to you. Miyuzai, you're the one who was close to me, my chaver. Asher yachtav namtik sod. We learned Torah together. Asher, that yachtav together, namtik sod. We had sweet Torah sessions of sod. Sod means the deepest level of Torah. It's not like we just learned, I just sat in your class. We learned together, we learned such sweet Torah together. It's heartbreaking. As I'm saying it, my heart breaks even more because David HaMelech is As a teacher, could you imagine, let's say you have a teacher or you have a student or you have somebody who you've explored spirituality together with, and you've been inspired together, and you've became religious together, and you daven together, and that person of all people should betray you. Where we learn sweet Torah together. The Beis Elokim in the shul in the Beis Medrash. Na'alech b'regesh, and we walk together with regesh. Regesh means with power, with emotion. We did so much together. We had so many spiritual experiences together. And you're the one who went against me. And you're the one who, because of you, I have to be afraid of my life. And my son, you incited my own child to rebel against me. Now, we should never know from a child rebelling against a parent. Nobody, no Jew should ever know from such a thing. But this part of David HaMelech's kingship was so painful to him, because even when they proved to him that Avshalom was indeed a rebel and that Avshalom was going against him, even when they proved that to him, David forgave him, and he wouldn't apply capital punishment to him, even though he was deserving of death. When you go against the king, you're not allowed to live. You can't disrupt the kingship. But David forgave him. He was Michael him. But this is the person who instigated it. Okay, so now David HaMelech says a very painful line for him. For us, we are on the side of David HaMelech. We're rooting for David HaMelech, and we are furious that Achitophel made this rebellion against him. But David couldn't forgive him. He said, Yashim Avas Aleim Hashem, you should take them, make them die. Yardu Sha'ol Chaim. This is the week of the Parsha of Korach here in Eretz Yisrael. And I told you that I never plan out the Tehillim classes in terms of coordinating them with the Parsha, but it always coordinates. So here, they should go down to the grave alive. Sha'ol means the grave, death, but they should be alive. That's exactly what happened to Korach. In other words, the earth should swallow them up. He's saying that they have to be punished, Hashem. Because they're evil, they're bad through and through, in their own self, in their homes, these people. Now, remember something else. Remember that David HaMelech is always conscious of the following. He's conscious of the fact that any time there's an enemy that's outdoors, that's outside, it's reflecting his own inner Yetzer Hara. And that's why the Yanuka has a very beautiful teaching on this. He says that why was it that, when Yosef Tzaddik was the king in Mitzrayim, in Egypt, and finally the Jewish Yehuda comes down, and they have the whole thing, right? Parshas Vayigash, in the book of Bereshit, Vayigash Elav Yehuda, so Yehuda approaches Yosef, and he doesn't know that he's Yosef yet, and there's this conflict between his two kings, because Yehuda was the king of the Jews, and Yosef was the viceroy of Egypt, and Yosef, Tzaddik, he knew prophetically from his father Yaakov Avinu that the Mashiach, the Geula, would come through him. And Yehuda knew prophetically through his father that the Geula would come through him. So you have these two sons of Yaakov Avinu, each of them thinking that the Geula is coming through them. So what does that mean? So of course, and they both had very different ways of serving God. So how is that going to be resolved? And so Chazal tell us that Hashem made two Mashiachs, two redemptions. The first redemption is a redemption of Rachel Imenu's child, Yosef Tzaddik, Mashiach ben Yosef. And the second and the final redeemer is a redemption of Yehuda, Mashiach ben David. So the Yanuka asks the question, why is it that Mashiach ben David gets the final redemption? Like, why is it in that order that Yosef Tzaddik begins the redemption? So according to many teachers, we're right now, when we say we want Mashiach ben Yosef. According to the Ramchal, we're waiting for Mashiach ben Yosef to begin the process, to be revealed and to begin the process. And then Mashiach ben David comes and finishes the process. So why did Yehuda get that? So the Yanuka answers, because Yehuda went through an embarrassing situation where he failed and he publicly admitted his failure. Whereas Yosef went through the same type of a situation, but he didn't fail, so he didn't have to admit publicly his failure. And the Rebbe and the Yenuka says that admitting your failure is a level of malchus. How do you achieve eternal kingship? When you admit that when you do something wrong and you admit it and you do tshuva for it and you ask the person's forgiveness, that makes you a queen and a king by admitting you're wrong. Because he says, what's the halacha? And it's very interesting, chiddush, he said. The halacha says, if you really harm somebody, and I'm not just talking about a small thing, but if you really harm somebody, then before you can ask God to forgive you, you have to make restitution to that person. If you stole money from someone, then you have to pay back the money. And if you don't, then how can you ask Hashem to forgive you? And how can you say in the Al Chet Gazalnu, right? If you still have the money in your hand, you're holding the money in your hand and you're saying Gazalnu, like I stole, how could that be? So how can Hashem forgive you if you're saying, if you didn't restore that which you stole? So he says something even deeper. He says, if you can't bring yourself to apologize to another person, then you really haven't done tshuva. And even when you ask Hashem to forgive you, you really don't mean it, because you haven't. Tshuva means I sincerely feel bad for what I did. Well, if you sincerely feel bad for what you did, then you have to try to feel. If you feel bad, then you have to say you're sorry to the person that you committed the crime against. And if you don't really, really feel bad about it, then you'll be too embarrassed to ask forgiveness. How do we know when we really feel bad about what we've done? If we feel so bad that we can't tolerate the existence of that action in this world, and we just have to get rid of it by saying, I'm sorry. And that's what makes you ruler. If you could rule over your own ego. My ego is, I'm embarrassed to call you. I'm embarrassed to tell you that I did this to you, but that's my ego. And if I can't rule over my ego and control my own ego, then I can't be a melech, I can't be a king. So Yehuda was able to sin. He did the wrong. He didn't know that he was forced into it. The Medrash tells us that Yehuda, first of all, he didn't do the wrong thing because she was legally married to him. There's a whole discussion about how Yehuda could have impregnated Tamar and stay married to her. And from that line comes David HaMelech. Like, what was that? And the answer is because she was legally married to him through the mitzvah of Yibum. Right now, the people who are learning Daf Yomi, they're learning a mitzvah called Yivamos. And Yivamos talks about this mitzvah, this remarkable mitzvah of Yibum. Yibum means if a woman is married to a man and he dies, the same thing happened to Ruth, he dies before and they don't have children, then his next of kin has to marry the widow. Not only has to marry, but is actually married to the widow. And they don't even need a marriage ceremony. They're already married. So really, Tamar knew that she was married to Yehuda. He just wasn't acknowledging it. Anyway, it doesn't matter because Yehuda recognized that. And he said those famous words, Sadka mimeni, she's right and I'm wrong and I'm admitting this publicly. And that's what made him the Sheikh Ben David. Could you imagine that 1 minute in his life? It was a 1 minute ordeal of excruciating humiliation. But because of that, he received the Malchus Beis David. So could you imagine when we go through that, he had one sin in his life. Okay, it was a pretty major thing, like he had to admit that he cohabited with his daughter-in-law. Who was in that Bezdin? Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu, his father and his grandfather were in that Bezdin. No, Yaakov Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu, his father and his grandfather. So that was embarrassing, right? And everybody's listening to this. Anyway, the Yenuka says that that's what gave him Mashiach ben David, because he admitted he was wrong, because he failed, and we have to acknowledge that we fail, and then he admitted that he was wrong. So here, when David HaMelech is saying, when he's saying that, these people who didn't admit that they were wrong, and Korach didn't admit that he was wrong in our parsha, this week's parsha. Last week's parsha, which is by you this week, is Shlach, the spies. They didn't admit that they were wrong. When we can admit that we're wrong and we apologize to the person, we are acquiring a level of dignity and rulership and royalty and sovereignty and monarchy. We become that. That makes us great people. So, and it feels so cleansing if you can apologize. And when you see you do something wrong, it's like taking off a Band-Aid, you know, you could do it slowly and then you have like agony, or you could just rip it off fast. If you did something wrong and the person's right in front of you, just apologize right away. It's much less painful. Just get it over with, apologize right away. You don't even have time to think so deeply about how embarrassing it's going to be. Okay, so that's David Melch's now getting rid of that discussion about the enemies and about the betrayal and about how bad he feels and he's allowed to feel bad. You see that David Melch, we talked about this a lot, that he is expressing to us his raw feelings, but he doesn't stay in a negative state. That's the trick, okay? The trick for healing is feel the pain, express it, but then go above it. Like, don't stay there, move on. So let's see how he moves on. But I'm calling out to God. Hashem's going to help me. Hashem's going to save me. I'm not staying in that place of moaning and groaning. I'm going to call out to God. I'm davening. Okay, now look what happens to him. Then he goes back into a pit. I'm gonna nighttime, morning time, in the middle of the day, I'm gonna talk to God. I'm gonna kvetch a little bit. The eheme is to kvetch, like oi, but Hashem is listening to me. Hashem is listening to me. And now there's a very, very famous song. I'm not gonna sing it, but Chabad takes the rest of the parak. If anybody hears Chabad, they take the rest of the parak and they sing. This is a very famous song that Chabadnikim sing. The whole rest of the parak. It's called Pada V'Shalom Nafshi. So now David Melch is saying, Hashem, let's try to finish the parak. Hashem, he redeemed me. A pidyon, he redeemed me. And he redeemed me with shalom. In other words, I'm shalom bifnim. I have inner peace right now. I'm no longer conflicted. He was so conflicted in the beginning of the parak. How could it be? And of course, the beginning of the parak doesn't mean that in the 2 minutes it takes us to read this parak, his emotions change. The beginning of the parak he wrote when he was in a horrible mood. And then he put the pen down, he put the quill down, and he picked it up later when he was able to move on. He didn't write it in one shot. He wrote it as he experienced it. So these psukim were weeks and weeks apart, perhaps, or days apart, or hours apart. And now he's resolved. He's the shalom inside. He understands that there's such a thing as a person doing the wrong thing and not admitting. We know that we do the wrong thing and we admit. We do all the time wrong things. But David Melch is now acknowledging there's such a thing as a big person doing a big aveira and not admitting. And I have to accept that. I have to accept that. You could have that situation. It's not comfortable for us to acknowledge it. Great people, great rabbis could make mistakes and not admit them. We're afraid of that. Every time if you see in the news another person comes out with an accusation, okay, thank God Hashem, it's not a lot. But whenever we have had that in the past, we're heartbroken. How could it be? How could it be? But now Hashem is redeeming my soul in peace. I'm inside. Okay. Mikravli, there's a battle that's inside of me, but I'm okay. Once I fought the inner battle, once I came to shalom with the inner battle, then I'll be able to fight the outer battle. And the many, many tzaddikim who are with me, there are many, many more righteous people who are great tzaddikim. In other words, rabbanim, tzaddikim. How many who fail? Once in a while you have somebody who fails and it's heartbreaking. But the majority are so good. The majority live their whole life serving the Jewish people without one tarnish on their reputation, just serving, without eating, without sleeping, without taking money, just serving. You know that my father, he should rest in peace, told me a story. I think I might have told you the story, but I'll tell it to you again because it was so powerful to me. I was just a teenager when he told me this. So in America, where I was living, in New York, there was a very big scandal. There was a rabbi, and they always put his name with rabbi, even though he wasn't a congregational rabbi, he wasn't a pulpit rabbi, and he wasn't a teacher rabbi. He just happened to have smicha, and he had a big black beard. And he owned nursing homes. And there was a big scandal that they accused him of somehow taking too much money from the government of people who were in his nursing homes who had died. In other words, the people died, but he kept receiving the payments as if they were alive. So there was a very big scandal, and he owned many nursing homes, and his face is on the front page, a big, there's a newspaper in that the whole front page was always one big picture. Not like the newspaper where you have the front page is like lots of different articles, but the whole front page is one big picture. And this rabbi's face was on that picture. The picture was on the front page. Rabbi, I forgot his name already. Rabbi so-and-so accused of theft and whatever. And it was so horrible. In the end, of course, they found he was innocent and that he had not done anything illegal. But in the end, they didn't have a big picture after weeks and weeks of his front picture. And in the end, they didn't have a picture of him smiling and said, not guilty. They didn't put that they put in page 50, in small little article. Yeah, that's the anti-Semitism in this world. But anyway, my father came home from work one day and he gathered us around. He said, this is what happened to him at work. When that newspaper came out, so at work, my father works in government. He worked in a government organization, and he was the supervisor. And he had a lot, but all of his workers that he supervised were non-Jews, and a lot of them were black. And so when that whole scandal came out, they said to my father, "Hey, Al, that was his name. One of your guys is on the front page of the paper. One of your guys." So my father said to them, "Listen, 365 days of the year, for forever, it's your guys who are on the front page of the newspaper. So okay, one of my guys is on that, but mostly it's your guys." So one of the black men said to my father, he said, "Your guys are never allowed to be on the front page. We're on the front page is okay. We understand that. We know our culture, we know our educational background, whatever. We know our society. But you guys, you're never allowed to commit these kind of crimes." And my father came home and he said, and my father said to him, "You are right. And this is a terrible scandal. It's a terrible desecration of God's name. You're right." And he came home and he said to us, "This is what the definition of a kiddush Hashem and a chilul Hashem, a desecration of God's name or a sanctification of God's name. When we walk in the street, if we're visibly Jewish, we have to always do everything right. Everything right." Okay, so Ki B'Rabim Hayu Imadi. He said there were more good people around me that are supporting me and that are part of my chevra, etc., and part of our chevra. More good people than bad, and therefore I'm able to be b'shalom. I was able to make peace on it heartbreakingly with this situation. And now the rest is positive. Yishma kel v'yaneim. Hashem should listen to my students and to all the good people, and Hashem should answer them. Yoshev kedem sela. Hashem, who is eternal. Remember, we learned that the word sela means like exclamation. Hashem, you should listen to them. These are Yoshev kedem. These are Hashem. This is Hashem, who is the God forever and ever. Listen to my students. Asher ein chalifot lamo v'lo yaru elokim. And don't listen to the ones who are changing things and who are not afraid of you, Hashem. Listen to my people, the people who are with me, the people who are simple and good. Don't listen to those complicated, power-seeking, ego-filled, powerful people. Don't listen to them. Listen to everybody else who is just trying to do the best they can with the circumstances that they have. That's what David Melch surrounded himself with when he was younger. when he was younger, before he was officially, after he was crowned king, but after he was anointed king, but before he was publicly made king, he surrounded himself with 400 men. And who were these 400 men? I think we talked about this. They were people who did not fit into the regular mizgeret, the regular framework of the Jewish world. They were the outcasts. They were searching for God, seeking God, but they didn't fit into boxes. And they were the ones who were attracted to David HaMelech. That's us in this generation. Everybody who doesn't fit in, we're trying to fit in, we do everything right, but was there something more that we know there's something more, we're waiting for Mashiach, we're not satisfied with the life that we have now. That's the people of David HaMelech. We're all David HaMelech's kids. Okay, now he's talking a little bit about his enemies. And he says the following. Now, why is David HaMelech explaining to us the method of somebody who did something wrong? Because he wants us to look in our own selves to see if we are guilty of this in a smaller way, because none of us are Achitophel, none of us are, the head of the Sanhedrin. We all have our own little malchus. And he says like this, he says, this is how he attracted people to himself. He shalach yadav b'shlamav. He made shalom, like he extended his hand, like when he shook hands with people. And he tried to make peace with people. But Chilel Brito, but then he went back on his own agreements that he made. In other words, he was a liar. He lied. He extended his hand. He tried to make friends. He tried to get onto his side people who were on the edge. But then in the end, he broke his promises to everybody. That's like every politician in this world. It's a joke now. Now, after the election in America, I don't know British politics. It's bad enough I see the corruption in American politics. But after the election in America, everybody now laughs whenever anybody makes any speech. Here in Israel, sadly, the same thing. It's so sad. Now, you know what happened to our government. The government here fell apart. And now everybody's trying to get a job. They're all hustling for a job now. It's a good job to be a government, to work in the Knesset. You get a lot of money, you get a lot of perks, get a lot of good stuff. So they're all now, everybody's saying, I will not sit in the government with that person. I will not sit in the government with that person. And we all read it and we laugh because that's what you said last election. And then you immediately made a government with that exact person. Here, I'll show you. They made ones that they embarrassed, listen, it's hard because Israeli politics is Jews. So it's hard to know all the laws of Lashon Hara, Shmiras Lashon. But they showed a clip of a certain person who said, Mefurish, with these words, I will never, they showed the whole interview. It wasn't like they showed a piece of it. I will never sit in a coalition with this particular, with these, right, with that, the cousins, whatever. And then he promptly changed totally and went and did it. So they asked him, they said, look, here's a clip of you. You promised, you said, never ever in the history of humanity will you ever do it. And then he went and did it. And he didn't really answer. He had all these excuses. That's how it is with politicians. They make excuses and they are experts in blaming everybody else but themselves. Even when you play a clip and say, look, here's what you said. So here, David HaMelech's Chilel Brito, he broke his own bris. A bris means a promise. So we can relate to that. Chalku machama'ot piv chem'ah. His piv, his mouth, is smoother than butter. You know that in English, they have that expression. Isn't an expression like that? Smooth like butter, like you, yeah? He's greasy. His speech is so smooth, but what's butter? It's slippery. Ukrav libo, but in his heart, there's all battles, there's all war. So Rakud Rav Mishemen, his words, the words that he says are softer than oil, but vehema pesichos, but they're all really curses. They're all really lies. Everything he says is a lie. And it's so hard to believe that it's a lie because it comes out sounding so true. That's a real liar. A real liar is skilled in lying in such a way that you can't believe that he lied. I can't believe that you did that. That's why David HaMelech is having such a hard time with Achitophel, because how could it be that we learned Torah together and then you went and you took every secret that I ever told you and you used it against me? You betrayed me. It's too painful. But he's telling us like this, ladies, he's telling us like this. We have to be very, very careful with the way we speak and try to convince people to be our friends. We can't in any way have a shmek, have the slightest whisper of insincerity. We have to be echad b'peh v'echad b'lev. We have to be real. We have to be truthful. We have to be sincere. We can't mislead. We can't manipulate. Manipulativeness is one of the biggest illnesses in this generation, where people they say things in such a way where you're not even sure what they said. It could go either way. They can slip out of it. They'll say, I'm sorry, you misunderstood me. That's sheker. Even though it's not like a little bit, it's pure, it is either truth or falseness. It's falseness when someone's misleading you. We have to be so careful not to mislead anyone. And you should know that when we become so careful with our mouth and not to mislead, we can hear, we can sense, we can know when somebody else is telling a lie, or when somebody else is like playing games, and we can catch them on it right away and say, what did you say? What did you mean? Like, you catch it right away. And they get all, they get all confused because you caught them in it. And you say it clear, say what you mean. And so for me, whenever I read about the people who went against David HaMelech, who went against him not because of loyalty to Shaul, but because of desire for their own power. You have to look inside. Don't blame them. Think to yourself. Like this week, that smart woman, the wife of Owen Ben Pellet, in our parsha in Eretz Yisrael, in Parshas Korach, which you're going to read Be'ez Hashem next week. So we know that the rebellion of Korach, right? So he had Das and Abiram, and Owen Ben Pellet says in Chumash his name. So what happened to him in the end? We don't hear that he died, because his wife said to him, "Listen, let's talk this out. What's Korach's motivation? Korach's motivation is that he's going to be the leader instead of Moshe and Aaron, or instead of Aaron. So where are you going to be in that whole hierarchy? You're still going to be at the bottom of the totem pole. It's not going to be that you're going to have a change in your life. Why are you following him when it's not going to change? He's doing it. She saw through Korach, and she said he's doing it for his own sake. Now, I'm saying this on a very simple shot level, because we know that Korach was a very big tzaddik. So I'm just repeating over what Chazal say, not that we could judge him. If we would meet Korach now, we would think he's Mashiach. We would think he's the most righteous, amazing. But on the level, when Moshe Ben was alive, on the level and what he did was not good. So she said to her husband, look, see through his smooth talking, and see through the smooth talking of Nadav and Das and Aviram. Are they really l'shem Shemayim? So, and she convinced him that they were not l'shem Shemayim. So he said, what should I do? They're going to come get me. She said, no problem. I'll take care of it. You go to sleep. And we know what she did. She sat outside the tent. She took off her mipachat, right? Humiliating to do. And she started brushing her hair. They didn't have shaitels in those days, so they couldn't think that she was wearing a shaitel. And they said, oh, we're not going near her. That's how righteous they were. They wouldn't go near a woman who was uncovered. I don't know if she was outside the tent or in the front, like in the tent, but right by the door, so that she could. But they saw that she was uncovered, and they didn't go closer. She saved his life. And she saved the life of all of her generations. to see through the motivations of people, and then to save them from, and also to save themselves. You know, that she, you know, it's sad that, why did Korach's wife die? Because she was the one who egged him on. And doesn't have their wives died also because they egged him on. Here comes one of the most famous psukim in Tehillim, Hashlech al Hashem Yahavcha v'hu yichal kalecha. David Melch is saying this to himself, he's saying this to his followers, and he's saying it to us. Throw your Yahavcha means your burden. Throw your burden onto God. V'hu yichal kalecha. He'll take care of you. He'll never let a tzaddik be destroyed. He won't let the tzaddik be destroyed. David Melch was a tzaddik here, and he didn't, and he had everything going against him. He had the whole government went against him. All of his son went against him. Everything was against him, and he came out victorious. Hashlech al Hashem Yahavcha. This pasuk you have to learn by heart. You have to say whenever you get nervous, say, Hashem, I'm giving it to you. I don't know how to solve this. I'll make whatever effort I can make, but I'm telling you, you have to help me out of this. Throw it onto Hashem. Throw your burden onto Hashem. And he'll take care of you. He'll support you. He'll help you. And he won't let the tzaddik, stumble or fall. We stumble a lot, but he won't let us be destroyed. Now, David Melch has to end this with a very strong statement. He says, Hashem, if you let evil people continue, then people are going to follow them. They're going to say, well, look, the guy is alive. Let's say the spies in your parsha this week, or Korach in our parsha this week. Let's say Hashem didn't punish them, or he gave them a slap on the wrist, a small punishment. So the people would say, okay, it's not so bad what they did. But because Achitophel was rebelling against the Malchus of David, and the Malchus of David, the kingship of David, was mandated by God. So it's like rebelling against the kingship of God, because David Melch had that, because that was a crime that Achitophel did. Because of that, he could not be allowed to live. Hashem, please, you're going to bring them down. Bring them to destruction. These people, these bloodthirsty people, are not going to live out half of their life. I'm going to trust you. And that's how it was. They all died. Sadly, his own son died. And they were killed by the people who were loyal to David Melch. They were killed by him. I'm going to trust you, Hashem. So look at Pasuk Chaf Gimel, the first three words of Pasuk Chaf Gimel, Hashlech al Hav, or first four words, Hashlech al Hashem Yahavcha, and then Mani Avtach. Throw it all to Hashem and trust Him, and Hashem will take care of us. That's the only way that we can live. We know that. We can't do anything in this world. We have to trust Hashem. Now, there's different levels of trusting. There's trusting Hashem, but you're still in a bad mood. And there's trusting Hashem, but you're in a good mood. We have to we all can trust in Hashem and be in a bad mood, because we know that that's how we live our life. We trust you, but it still hurts. The trick is to ask Hashem, I want to be trusting you, Hashem, and be in a good mood. I want to trust you so much that it influences my body. I want to have emunah in the body, emunah in the emotions, emunah in the brain, emunah in the body. The Slonim Rebbe, the Siva Shalom talks about this. We all have emunah in the brain. We've spoken about this. We all have emunah in the brain. We all believe in God. Period. We know He exists. We know Hashem is running the world. We know we believe in God. That's one thing. But emunah in the emotions, how much of a good mood are we? Or are we in a grumpy mood? When you're in a good mood, you know what it feels like. When you're in a grumpy mood, you say, oh, okay, how are you, Baruch Hashem? Like you say it, but not with Baruch Hashem. And then emunah in the body means that your blood pressure doesn't even change a drop. You don't have any emotion, you have total equanimity. You're completely calm. That's called emunah in the body. And again, because I like the Yanuka so much, so I tell you about him. So if you look at his videos, which you should all look at them, they're starting to translate them in English and to make subtitles, and they'll be starting to do that. But if you ever notice him, or if you're lucky enough to come to Eretz Yisrael and see him in person, he has perfected this consciousness of being I won't say unemotional, I'll say calm. He's completely calm at all times. His face doesn't change. He doesn't get like a high and a low, and has a fixed face. It's a beautifully calm. It's not like unemotional, and you just have to see how he speaks. He's completely with God at all times, but mamish in his body, so that it reflects on his face. He's not in any way flustered. And even when he meets the greatest tzaddikim, he doesn't get overawed. He's just in a complete place of devekas to God. And when you're in that place, everything is the same. That's what really the pasuk means. The pasuk that says, that we say in Tehillim, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamid, that I'm always imagining God before me. So in Chabad, they make the teaching of the word Shiviti, which means to imagine God is in front of you. From the word Hishtavos. Hishtavos means Shaveh. Shaveh means equal. So in Chabad, they say that life, you should be so trusting in God that whatever he does to you, you're equally okay with, whether Hashem is with you, whether Hashem seems to be against you, whether Hashem is close, whether things are good, whether things are bad, everything is the same to you because it's all God. It's all different expressions of God. And a person who's in that mindset knows that we are within God. The entire universe is within God. So there's nothing dangerous because we are all within God. So now we're within God, and then God is showing to us different manifestations of himself. Sometimes the manifestation of Hashem is a scary thing. You know, you're nervous about something. Sometimes the manifestation of Hashem is a loving manifestation, but it's all within God. So when you feel that you are in God's embrace, Hashem is holding you and he's showing you a movie of your life. So you're just in Hashem's embrace, watching the movie that Hashem is showing you. So we, regular people, we are feeling the movie that Hashem is showing us. We're not watching it. We're experiencing it. So we get a little emotional. But if we're feeling that we're in Hashem's embrace and we're just watching the movie that Hashem is showing us, then we're just watching it. And we're like, eating popcorn with God and watching the movie with God. God is watching it, we're watching it. To be an observer, that's an observant Jew. It's interesting. To be an observant Jew means to be able to have this, at least this mindset of let me observe my life. Let me try every once in a while to withdraw from the experience of it and just observe what's Hashem doing. What's Hashem doing? How come I can observe your life and tell you, oh, I think you should do this, I think you should do that. Why can we do that for each other? Because we're observing another person's life. It's very helpful if we could observe our own life, because we know all the different parameters, ramifications, and all the different parts of our life. So if we could step back for a second and observe what's happening right this second, and then put into the whole context of everything that we know about our own life, it takes away a lot of the nervousness. Anyway, that's how the Yenuka. His name is the Yenuka, Reb Shlomo Yehuda Be'eri. Go on YouTube and watch his shiur. Just watch him. He's a very beautiful person. And his YouTube channel is called in Hebrew, HaYenuka, with an Aleph at the end. Hey Yud Nun Vav Kuf Aleph. The guy who does it, his name is, his last name is Gold. I forgot his first name. Shalom, maybe? Go watch him and see how his face is. Very Hishtavos, right? Aryeh, that's his name, Aryeh Gold. Aryeh Gold. It's all in Hebrew though. But every once in a while you can find English subtitles. Okay, we finished Nun. Hey, now we're going to do it cheerful. We're going to start it cheerful, upbeat. This is a hard parak. And I want to tell you something. I did this parak intentionally with somebody in mind who was actually been betrayed in her career. And so I had her in mind for this parak because that's what happened to David Melech. And all of us have people who've gone through stuff. And this can relate to everybody. But again, the three primary lessons is Lesson number 1, feel your pain. Don't ignore it. Lesson number 2, go straight to Hashem with your pain. Don't stay in your pain. Go straight to Hashem with your pain. And lesson number 3, then begin to analyze your own behavior and see, do I exhibit the same type of behavior as that enemy did towards me? Do I do anything like that in my life? And if I do, then, address that and correct that and fix that. That's the 3 levels, the 3 general messages of this particular genre of Tehillim, because we have a few of these documents in Tehillim of David Melch, feeling excruciating pain because of something that happened to him, because of the enemies. It's always about enemies who are trying to harm God's kingship in the world. That was manifesting through King David. And but that's the general outline of it. And when a person, people who don't have deep emotions and can't tolerate other people's deep emotions, they try to be problem solvers. In other words, someone tells you their problem. So think about it in yourself. If somebody tells you their problem, somebody calls you up, complains to you, do you right away try to find a solution, or do you first commiserate with them and validate them and really feel their pain and feel bad for them and say, like, I don't know what to tell you? So the second one is what we should do. Allow a person to feel their pain. Don't try to put a Band-Aid. The person's feeling, if a child's coming home from school and, Mora yelled at me today, don't say, well, what'd you do? Or don't say, I'm going to call Mora. Don't give a solution right away. But instead, oh, that must have felt so terrible. Tell me how you feel. Are you okay? And don't give them food to try to make food their companion in misery, because that's just going to train them for life. But just sit with their emotions for a few minutes and let them feel the emotion. Children are so wonderful that they can naturally get over it. Then they'll say, but okay, but then, Chaim gave me a snack and I'm happy. Like they can, but you have to validate and let them feel their feeling. And if they can't get out of the feeling of Chaim gave me this snack, then you have to help them. So what else happened? Tell me a good thing that happened today. A bad thing happened to you today. I'm so sorry that you had to have that. Okay. A bad thing happened to you today. I'm sorry you had that. Now tell me, did anything good happen today? No. Yeah. Try and get them out of there. They might want you to play the game a little bit and give them more sympathy. That's okay. Sympathy never hurts children, but you can't let them stay in that place ever of misery, because that's not healthy. And then we could talk about how Mora was, how it's so not good to get angry. Eventually, Mora got angry. Maybe Mora had a bad day at home. Maybe Mora doesn't feel well. But we know how bad it is. And she's a little kid. We know how we don't want to make anybody else. We never want to make anybody else feel as bad as Mora made you feel today, right? And that's the thing. You just done Nun Hey with your child. All right, Chevra. It's good to see you guys. And we have to take a break in the summer, but I don't know yet when. I think more in August than July. I think we'll go through July.
Yeah. When did you say tell Rebbetzen Silber?
I think August I'll need a break.
Mid or for the month of August.
I think so.
Okay, so up to the end of July, Be'ezras Hashem. Okay, so the truth is that takes us, because there are people that all the schools start having holidays and
right.
So
and you also have to tell me your schedule, but
yeah, I'm going to check the dates.
Yeah, our schedule here is that we are, August and Av are basically overlapping.
Yeah.
2 days off. So when we're starting, Be'ezras Hashem.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, good.
Thank you
Good
very,
Shabbos.
very much.
Good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, and thank
Thank
you
you
very
so much.
Thank
Shabbos,
you.
thank you.